it up, it's your new groove, yeah. Riding waves in the digital blue, yeah. CDO times got that insight, yeah. For the execs in the tech light, yeah.
Welcome to another episode of Bites of Brilliance, where we today delve into the dynamics of the executive job market. Joining today is Graeme Smith, a seasoned partner at Eton Partners, specializing in executive search, transformation, and also part of the digital technology practice. In today's discussion, we will focus on current trends in the job market, including industries that are hiring, the impact of recent mass layoffs, and strategies, first and foremost, for executives to navigate these kind of turbulent waters. So I thought maybe we can kick it off. Graeme, welcome to the podcast. Glad to have you here. Graeme, maybe you can give us an overview of the current trends that you're seeing in the executive job market, and maybe also, are there any industries that are currently hiring?
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks for the intro, Carson, and good to see you on video. We obviously caught up a couple of weeks ago in person in Boston, so nice to follow up on that. And yeah, looking forward to talking through my views on the world of exec search and where the market is at the moment. And I know, of course, kind of high on our list of things to discuss will be both recent layoffs and impending layoffs, because there's going to be a few, but I can caveat that with lots of positive news as well. So the market's very hot at the moment. I want to start with that note. But yeah, current trends. So look, obviously we're coming out the back of a period of COVID and global economic challenges, which has meant there've been layoffs, but probably more than that, we overhired as a industry, as a species, whatever you want to term it, during COVID. So if we look at life sciences and pharma, there was this massive spike in hiring because it was required to get through a very intense period of delivery. And now, of course, that market slowed down a bit and margins are tighter, and companies are looking at their annual spend in terms of people in senior leadership. Hence, we've seen those people come back onto the market. So life science is a very different world to what it was even 12 months ago. I would say apparel and retail, where I spend a lot of my time. So, omni-channel retailers, whether that's in the UK, North America, or wider Europe, that's also seen a massive time of change as well. And I could go into specifics by brand, but every business in that category has had increased energy costs, increased logistic and distribution costs, and then, of course, shortening consumer demand. So I'm going to reference VF Corporation just for context. They were absolutely flying, probably 2020, 2021. The brands for reference are North Face, Dickies, and Vans shoes. Great brands, like very popular. But they've seen in the last 8 months an extremely difficult time in terms of people who buy a North Face jacket, right? They're now looking, if it's a North Face or it's a Patagonia or it's a Rab, it really doesn't matter. It's what's cheapest. So all these brands are going into the spin of discounting, which of course is not where you want to be. You want to be racing to the bottom.
Right.
And the impact there in terms of the job market is when you've got a lot of highly employed people in digital and tech, somebody's going to be, missing out. So, very quickly changing market dynamics. We've obviously, on a daily basis, I'm talking about the work from home model and what's best for each company. And nobody has the perfect fit. I mean, I could give you my views on probably what works best for most.
Right.
And that works best for most in terms of the company and the people. And one thing I'd say to your listeners is, agility is key. Now, I think if I just take North America as one segment, there isn't really a value in people being on site, so let's say 2 days a week. It's probably more like 1 week a month. So you can block your time with your team, you can socialize, have dinner, whatever it might be. And that's what I'm seeing most companies looking for, which allows people who, the mass movement out of the likes of San Francisco during COVID, where everybody thought, hang on, I'm living in a really congested city. It's got some social problems. Maybe I can move to Denver and hike on the weekends or ski.
Yeah.
So if you are trying to attract the right type of talent, you have to offer that flexibility and life balance. And I think companies are very aware of that,
Right. Yeah, no, I remember when I, had my team, for the most part, the corporate team in Boston Beer, and we had this beautiful office in downtown Boston, and nobody wanted to come in, obviously, because you didn't know if it was safe. And even then, folks were starting to realize, hey, I can live in the suburbs in Boston, right? And I don't need to come into the office too often. Now, the flip side is some companies now are calling people back into the office, right? I've
Yeah.
seen some tech companies mandatory for folks to come back. So it's really every company probably is a little bit different there to see what works for them. But if you're in retail or manufacturing, it's also the unfortunate reality where some people need to come in, right? They need to actually
Yeah. You have to.
manufacture and operate the machines, but maybe with robotics coming down the road, right? Might have some what's it, the ID with an open AI interface walking through
Yeah.
the warehouses and picking and packing, right? Which is a little bit scary too. Um,
Yeah. But
uh,
and on that point about, first of all, I'm a big advocate for flexible working. I think it's here to
yeah.
stay. And actually, it was 3 weeks ago that I think it was it Gartner produced a report where they interviewed, the CEOs of the Fortune 500, and a year ago, 30% thought flexible working was the right thing, and now 65% do. So
Mhm.
everybody's kind of on board. So it is good. I I do wonder and hope, though, that we don't want a leadership vacuum in 10 years. So
Mhm.
what I'm talking about here is, more junior members of staff, right? So people who are now employed that have never stepped foot in an office. I mean, even to say that sounds crazy, huh?
Right.
But it's the reality. There's people in their mid to late 20s who've never been in an office and only look through a computer screen. Now
That's crazy.
that's the next generation of,
Yeah.
in 10 years' time, VPs, senior
Right.
directors, we hope. And there's going to be a problem because you need to be able to light up a room, and we'll talk later about
Yeah.
characteristics of strong leaders.
Right.
You need to walk into a room, look somebody in the eye, shake their hand,
Right.
drive the energy, paint a picture, share some vision. And I
Yeah.
just wonder, we have to get people back in and amongst the kind of social interaction of being in an office, or we could
Yeah.
face problems down the line.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I think that's absolutely right, and it's you know even if you're working for Wendy's recently, went to the corporate office to meet with folks and just to realize I'm in the office and I'm going on Zoom calls to talk to people that are not in the office.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's kind of the reality today, and it's happening all over the place. But to your point, right? It's so important to uh, use all these different ways to interact with each other, where bumping into somebody unscheduled in an office, like when I was at Boston Beer, I bumped into the
yeah,
CEO and I had a
yeah, yeah,
conversation with him, right? And that was unscheduled, and it's just or people that you're seeing, like we met in Boston, right? And we were both like, well, you're really tall, right? So
yeah. We're both quite
it's I
tall, and
can't,
obviously,
yeah.
yeah, that's the first thing you meet somebody in the flesh for the first person, but also, yeah, yeah, somebody's presence, and it is, it is even things like shoulders back, chin up, and I'm a
Right.
big believer of that. It's man or woman, it doesn't matter. It's about having a presence there.
Hmm.
I was going to add to that, kind of shifting candidate priorities.
Hmm.
So 10 years ago versus now, if I just take North America, it used to be very much like first thing would what top two things would be salary. How much can I earn? Because in
Hmm.
North America, you have so many costs, whether it be education or healthcare.
Hmm.
So it was kind of title, salary, obviously company, then leadership,
Hmm.
and including content of the role. And now that's slightly different. So because of this flexible working policy, our bosses are now also part of our homes,
Hmm.
whether it be through WhatsApp or you talk to somebody from your kitchen table, whatever it might
Right.
be. So I see much greater emphasis from leaders of who am I going to be working for? You know, obviously they've got to be good, but do I
Hmm.
like them? Like, do I
Right.
like them? When they call
Hmm.
me at 7:30 p.m., do I want to speak to them?
Right.
And in the later section when we talk about my thoughts on what candidates looking for roles should think about,
Hmm.
it's about that human element. It's about working hard and having good skills and abilities, but it's also being a good human, and
Hmm.
you can't overstate that. You're talking
Right.
about the Boston Beer Company there. And, yeah, if somebody was not really wanted others to succeed, you probably
Hmm.
wouldn't be as inclined to go in, would you?
Hmm.
But when you have that environment, it definitely attracts people.
Right. Right.
Um, and the other one, actually, this is very tactical, but it's probably worth mentioning. As we're trying to get people back to offices, the architecture of building, literally the space that you work in, the temperature of the room, the lighting, how good the coffee is,
Hmm.
these are all kind of obvious things. But if you make these great, you're much more
Yeah.
inclined to get traction there rather than the coffee machine never works, right? People
Right.
just get, the language, pissed off with that and they're going to want to come in. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I remember working for SAP and they had all these fancy cappuccino machines everywhere. That was really really nice. And now that, I worked for Bravo for a little bit, I'm become my own barista, so I'm very much a
Yeah.
coffee snob now. So
That's good. A man of talent. But that's something we could definitely talk about. Yeah.
yes. Um, so the other thing that I think in our conversation in Boston we kind of talked about, um, the trend right now where there was a little bit of over hiring going on, expectation maybe, post COVID, that certain services would take off more and they didn't, and their reach changing. And a lot of companies are in the tech sector are like also refocusing on automation, artificial intelligence enabled products, and they need different skill sets, right? So
Yeah.
um, so, what should an executive really do to see, how do I make myself stay
Attractive.
relevant in this market,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Yeah, no, exactly. And it's the buzz, isn't it? It's everyone wants AI to be the magic wand which either saves the business or helps it grow. And the reality is, we all know this, with poor quality data, AI is irrelevant. It
Right,
just you can't do anything with it.
right.
So, from a candidate perspective, of course, you need to be able to talk around it.
Hmm.
The tools, the systems, the potential gains of implementing them. But I think also, sort of talk with an air of not conservatism, but definitely caution.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that is there's plenty of big chief digital officer roles out there, or VPs of digital,
Hmm.
VPs AI and analytics,
Hmm.
which on paper look good,
Hmm.
but you've got to kind of do your due diligence, which is my job as well on behalf of the
Hmm.
candidates. The salary's great, the title's right, but what's the
Hmm.
appetite for change? You don't want to
Hmm.
land into a role and it's like, well, I thought you could make AI solve our problems, and we've only given you a budget of 200 grand. And it's like, right, now we've got a problem here. Um, and there's good examples of it being used successfully. There's also ones where Copilot.
Hmm.
I think we talked about it.
Hmm.
I was with a top 10 global pharma company a few weeks ago
Hmm.
who've kind of gone all in on Copilot.
Hmm.
So they've, Microsoft gave them the service, try before you
Hmm.
buy and all this stuff.
Hmm.
They like
Right,
it. They then
right.
implemented it or sold it to all their staff. And then
Yeah.
the $30 subscription fee comes in. It's like, right, now we've got a problem because we've got everybody excited by it. But the reality is
Yeah,
we don't want to be paying $30 for however many thousand people.
right.
Um, and I think they're not the only business. There'll be others who Copilot is a bit of a sticking point for a few people right now. So I
Hmm.
probably wandered a bit off of your question, which
Hmm.
was, how can candidates stay afront the whole AI piece? And
Hmm.
it's been an active learner. It's asking questions. It's surrounding
Hmm.
yourself with people who are the best at what they do in that
Hmm.
space. And it's follow a logical process. Use
Right.
Google, find
Hmm.
out the good news stories, who's really
Yeah.
nailed it, and reach out to that person and connect. Because
Right.
I think there's a general belief that we're all out here to help each other.
Hmm.
It's a competitive job market, but there's space for us all. And I'm an
Hmm.
optimist. I think there's always space for people, and therefore let's help each other. Let's knowledge share, and let's yeah, let's figure a way through and
Yeah.
support each other.
Well, I'm pointing in the wrong direction. So that's why I founded CDO Times, right? Is to really share and help executives kind of navigate the waters, and they don't have to spend all of the time to try to find the relevant stories, but we're really talking about exactly on an executive level, what's relevant, what are the skills, what are the models that are working, what are the case studies, and also I think there's also classes out there, right? MIT and other folks, other companies are offering training classes for how to do product management for AI, because that's really what it is, right? It's not
Right.
it's not a new technology, but it is, you got to find out, where is it a fit and where it is not. There's other technologies for other areas that you can leverage, right? It's not fit for everything, but
No,
yeah, it
agreed.
makes a lot of sense.
It's just kind of like, the expression sharpening your tools. It's being an active learner, and every week or whatever time you can afford,
Hmm.
actively researching, because it's all out there on the internet. All the information is, and therefore the barriers to knowledge are pretty low. So
Hmm.
I think just for people to really stay on top of it,
Right.
yeah, that would be my thoughts there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, when we look at the current market, and if you have folks that are, either actively looking or passively looking, what would be kind of some strategies that, from your perspective, make sense, right?
Yeah.
To see what's out there, to explore, to be visible.
Yeah. Well, I think I'll start by saying, my job, if a company appoints me to run a search, their expectations, quite rightly, would be that I have the skills and ability to get hold of people who aren't actively looking. So I do
Hmm.
want to make that point at the start.
Hmm.
And the reason that I'm saying that is because the people that aren't looking are the best at what they do, and therefore their
Hmm.
company looks after them and pays them well, and their boss probably likes them.
Hmm.
So that's the starting point of a search. But then there is definite opportunity for people either in between roles or looking
Hmm.
to find the perfect gig for them. It might take a bit more time, and I would definitely urge people to be patient, remain calm, because nobody likes not having a job, or nobody likes being in a job they don't like.
Hmm.
But just be patient. And even in the last 3 weeks, we've seen a massive loosening of the market. Like, there is a
Hmm.
lot of hiring going on out there.
Oh.
But post a lot of companies end of financial year in March,
Hmm.
they know where they're headed, they know what the budgets are, and so there's a lot of open roles out there.
Hmm.
Um, you know, uh, Whether it be in architecture or engineering, or name another, or analytics,
Hmm.
it's important to realize that whilst your skills may be excellent, there's also another 100 people who have the same skills.
Right.
So what therefore differentiates you? And in my view, let's say I meet 30 people a week for the first time through interviews, and all have equally good technical experience and management experience. The two or three people I'm going to remember are the ones who are interesting,
Hmm.
exciting,
Hmm.
energetic,
Hmm.
funny, like, bring humor to work. We spend so much time with our colleagues that you've got to be somebody where people want to take the call,
Hmm.
or you have to go to a manufacturing site and it's a 3-hour drive there.
Right.
I mean, yeah, you got to have something interesting to talk about, be authentic,
Hmm.
get to know the other person. And I think that's the key thing. So how do you do it? Well, first of
Hmm.
all, it's how you act in interview in person or over video.
Hmm.
Um, I think it's kind of managing your brand, and showing some depth to your personality on LinkedIn.
Hmm.
I'm going to slightly add a word of caution there as well, because there is a lot of content on LinkedIn. And whilst I think posting is good to gain visibility,
Hmm.
just just not too much, right? Because you can
Right.
quickly become the person who, will talk about anything, and then you lose your point of difference. So
Hmm.
I think, be individual, be interesting, be energetic, um, be proactive.
Hmm.
So if a business like mine is running a search, manage your network of exec search consultants. And if I hear of a role that I'm not running, but another search company is, I'll tell you who it is. I think, again, to the point, we're all out to help each other. So that's number one: manage your network, both in terms of search firms, but also your old business connections. I think it's really interesting that people don't stop and look back at who they've worked with over the years and what are those folks doing now, because that let's be honest, people are way more inclined to hire somebody they already know, as long as they had a good
Right.
experience, right? As long as they had a good experience. But
Yeah, exactly. And I think so Graeme, one thing that you just mentioned is something that executives are trying to figure that out for themselves, which is a lot of these roles are not posted, right? That the executive roles, there's a hidden job market. And like you
yeah,
said, networking, going to events, and personal branding is very important. And also reaching out to folks like yourself, like that are potentially, about opportunities that might not be super
yeah.
public, right? And you're doing a lot of the job. So maybe talk about the hidden job market and strategies to uncover opportunities.
Yeah, well, I mean, so it is tough from somebody in my position sometimes. I'd ask candidates, not to be. There are a lot of people looking for roles at the moment, right? And I'd love to help each and every person, as would my colleagues in Eton Bridge or from another search firm. And the reality is, there's only so many hours in a week. So
Right.
I would ask candidates that don't be despondent if you don't hear back. It's like if we don't immediately have a role that's relevant to you, then we wouldn't be able to find time that week. So
Hmm.
keep asking, keep in front of people, but don't become despondent. That's the first one. But yeah,
Hmm.
it's the networking piece. Your network is your net worth, as they say.
Hmm.
So it's keeping in touch with senior decision makers. In terms of the hidden job market, obviously a lot of searches are under NDA, so they're not going to be publicized and not
Hmm.
going to be spoken about. So you will never know about them, and that's the way it should be.
Hmm. Hmm.
But you will pick up leads. I mean, play it smart. I think the big thing is waking up every day, not thinking, where do I even begin? Be tactical about your search. So, network, speak to people in search or in industry, number one. LinkedIn, if you know, we've got a bit of a challenge at the moment because advertising roles on LinkedIn is just not a good thing to do because you can get 400 applicants in 24 hours and you've got
Yeah.
technology directors, bin men and chefs all in one pot. It
Yeah.
doesn't work. So avoid that. But if you see a
Hmm.
business, let's say Dyson's hiring, okay, Dyson, either in the UK or the US, what I
Hmm.
would do is, let's just say it's an SVP of engineering. God forbid they advertise a role like that, by the way, on LinkedIn. But let's just say they did. Um, Go to the source.
Hmm.
It's pretty easy to figure out who the CTO is. Um,
Right.
and CTOs might regret me saying this if they did listen, because they don't want their inbox flooded. But
Hmm.
play it smart. Of course, just shooting somebody a note if you've never met them before, or importantly, don't have a connection, as in a personal
Hmm.
connection with somebody else, is going to be a challenge.
Right.
But coming back to the network points, the first thing I do whenever I reach out to anybody is talk about a mutual friend slash business associate that I have.
Hmm.
We know that's the way to get somebody's attention. Oh, if they like you, then I'm going to be fine with it, rather than
Right.
just a cold note. So I think go to the source when you can.
Hmm.
Keep your ears and eyes to the ground. Follow market trends, and that's not hiring trends. That's business trends. So,
Hmm.
for example, food and beverage manufacturing is ripe for technology disruption. And as we're talking to a more technical and digital audience here, be confident that technology's influence on any company is only getting bigger,
Hmm.
whether that be driving efficiencies in manufacturing supply chain or all the way through to digital customer experience. You're going to be in a table of conversation. So, we've already seen a pickup the last 3 weeks. We're going to see more, and then just repeat the process. But
Hmm.
but don't come out swinging. I think the other one as well is, yeah, there's a pressure to not having a job if this is referring to people with that in between roles.
Hmm.
Don't panic and I'm going to say you've got to be authentic, but also don't show that frustration, because when it
Hmm.
comes across, it's not a strong character trait.
Hmm.
You're an executive. You're a calm and assuring presence, and maintain that through your journey.
Hmm.
My
Hmm.
thoughts. Yeah.
No, that's really really good insight right there. So with search firms like Eton Bridge, how how do you help executives navigate these market conditions and support executives during this time, both the hiring authorities and executives that are coming
Yeah.
or potential candidates.
Well, I mean, first of all, I feel very fortunate to work in the world in which I do. And by the way, I got into it by chance, not design. But
Yeah.
I love search, and for the following reasons. On a daily and hourly basis, I get to speak to people who are at the forefront of industry trends, who constantly hearing information which we're very privileged to know, and that includes which businesses are going to be hiring, which markets are in growth. It could be which PE funds are just releasing liquid capital,
Hmm.
and then helping people as much as possible to point them in the direction of the opportunity. But
Hmm.
then, obviously, my job is to win as many retained searches as possible. And when we do have those retained searches, is to know my network immediately, be able to pick the phone up to people directly, and manage those candidates effectively through a process. Because with the whole event of Teams and Zoom, candidates may have experienced this, but there's a propensity for companies to want to explore the market more. Oh, we'll just see a few more people, and then the process starts to get a bit longer, and the candidate gets frustrated, and it runs on and on. And my job and my peers' job is to say, well, we have to have a kind of a deadline on things, and we have to also have a relationship with you. When we say you've seen the best, you have, and then we move
Hmm.
into interview. So it's my job to manage that process and flow. Um, on the candidate side, it's been available, it's been uh, open, it's been kind of accurate. So just when calls are scheduled for a time, it's being there, and it's the small tactical stuff that doesn't go unnoticed
Hmm.
by search consultants. So if you're on point with all of that stuff, you're going to be higher up the chain of a shortlist than you would be if you're tricky to get hold of, or
Hmm.
um, there's errors in your CV, or what it could be really obvious stuff, but just yeah, being absolutely buttoned up, and all the smaller details will help as well. So I think
Hmm.
I've gone off topic a bit, because your question was
No.
how do Eton Bridge help? Well, we're an ear to the market. We support people whether they're in roles or not.
Hmm.
I think we generally have a natural desire to we're all in this together.
Yeah.
Um, and whilst other companies may not speak to you because it's not going to be a number in terms of dollars or pounds at the end of their month, we probably have a longer term view on it. So
Right.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
it.
and I think one thing that I've heard before and that I try to do is it's a two-way relationship, right? It's not just you come to Graham and like, hey, I'm in the market, I'm interested in roles, but it's also nurturing the relationship, being there, maybe helping with qualifying candidates, right? Offering that up to recruiters and building like a relationship with your top 10, folks that you just stay in touch as an executive nowadays. You just need to do that, right?
Yeah, yeah. Listen, it's the depth of the relationships as well, because however many years ago, kind of reached a turning point where I was probably a bit transactional. So,
Hmm.
I would interview a candidate, we go through the relevant details in order of whether they're fit for the job, and then
Hmm.
thanks, and into the process. Whereas I actively now, I'm going to ask you, what are your interests? I know you're a
Hmm.
music guy, and we talk about
Hmm.
that, or the family, or whatever it be.
Yeah.
And I think
Hmm.
I think candidates should do that as well. Now, we can't change personalities, and I get an introvert is an introvert, and I'm
Hmm.
not suggesting people become chameleons, but I think just be confident in the space of sharing more, share a bit more.
Hmm.
Um, the person behind the screen, who is it? What's your why?
Right.
What gets you up in the morning? Why are you doing it? And I think I definitely buy into it. I think most people probably would as well.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You got to be authentic.
Yeah.
What are some changing topics a little bit? What are some of the long-term trends you foresee in the executive job market?
Yeah. Um, well, I think first of all, there's about to be I'm going to talk in the frame of the next 2 to 3 years. A lot of senior CIOs are about to retire. So we're going to see a real kind of fluctuation in the market. There's going to be lots of activity. We know when a new CIO joins, they're probably going to revamp their team or have a different direction of travel to the predecessor.
Hmm.
So that's kind of coming. It's already in process in some places, but it's coming. Longer term trends. I mean, I think we are seeing a return to travel. So in a global business, I'm thinking specifically here of a client of mine, which is an international travel and hospitality company.
Hmm.
The chief exec of that company has been a resounding success for many reasons, but largely because they're back out there in the flesh meeting people.
Hmm.
And I think return to travel is going to be a thing, and hopefully people embrace it. With
Hmm.
again a couple of watch outs. Obviously,
Hmm.
we've got carbon neutrality that we're trying to reach and everything like that. So don't fly
Right.
for no purpose. But if the opportunity comes, I think it does solidify relationships, and I expect the FTSE 250s, Fortune 500 companies to expect that going forwards. So that's one thing I see. We talk about digital tools and let's just talk about language, right? I think 10 years ago, you used to say "Dear Sir," and it was signed off with "Yours sincerely."
Hmm.
It's understanding things like acronyms, sorry, TLDR.
Hmm.
Do you know what that is?
TLDR. Tell me what that
I've
is.
tested you there, Carsten. It's, well, in the tech world, like with Google, it's too long, didn't read. So,
Okay.
if you email somebody with paragraphs of information, you might
Right.
just get a reply which says TLDR. Don't be
Okay.
offended by that. That's
Right.
the narrative of the world in which we work now.
Right. Right.
WhatsApp as a I think leaders understanding how to communicate over WhatsApp, because nobody
Hmm.
really talks about it, but it is the de facto, it's the go-to.
Hmm.
Um, the I don't know if I mentioned to you about Google's. I don't know if this is confidential. If it is afterwards, you might have to take it out, but I think
Okay.
it's okay. But Google have gone through a sort of trial, I guess, of no hello.
Hmm.
So this is a changing dynamic of internal comms. So if I
Okay.
message you as a colleague on a Monday morning over
Right.
Teams, I'm not to ask you, "Good morning, Carson. How was your weekend?" Question mark,
Hmm.
because it's a waste of time.
Oh.
And if you want to have because by asking somebody a question, you're making them have to answer it.
Right.
So what their proposal is that I might say "Good morning, Carson," but it would just
Yeah.
be where's the report or what time's the meeting. I'm not going to ask you how your weekend was.
Ah. Hmm.
And
I don't like that.
yeah, not many people do, right? Not many people do, and I don't think it's had a great reaction from employees. But
Yeah.
his business is thinking and acting in a different way, very quickly.
Right.
Um, yeah,
That's
I think
interesting.
there's a couple of other things, but yeah, I think just general longer term trends is the style and way of communicating.
Hmm.
How do you win trust and confidence in a digital age?
Hmm.
This is something we need to be very conscious of.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'd say that.
Okay. No, this is great. So I thought maybe we can shift to our rapid round of questions. So I like to kind of do that just to, you know, if you can, you give a short answer. But I know that actually we kind of skipped that in the introduction, and you have an interesting background, right? You're not straight from kind of the tech industry, but you know the like the business, the food. You were involved in food businesses, right? And we're able to source food, and so I thought maybe I asked you something about that, that I skipped kind of in
Yeah.
the introduction.
Yeah, well, thanks. I'm looking forward to this bit. So, yeah, just for context, if anybody is interested, but yeah, I grew up in farming, and then the first 6 or 7 years of my career was in food importing.
Mhm.
So, yeah, that was basically going to Italy, Spain, France, or Germany and buying their best produce for a British retailer. So, it was a great
Wow,
job. I got to be honest, it was fun.
nice, nice. Yeah, I'm a little bit of a foodie myself, so I'm looking forward to this section. So, are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Favorite country for sourcing food?
Yeah, it's got to be Italy. Yeah, closely followed by Spain, but it's Italy, and in particular the Bari region, which is the heel of the shoe.
Uh-huh.
So the heel of the shoe, and a
Right.
place called Ostuni, which is, if anyone ever wants to go to Italy, it's beautiful. It's a very historic place. It's
Mm,
wonderful. But I used to buy sun-drenched tomatoes from there for
mm,
for this British retailer, so it was great.
right.
And I know you're about to ask me what produce would I. What was the question? What's the next question?
Yeah, what's the most memorable food you discovered during your travels?
Yeah, got it. So there's two. So one is a wine, and it's from the
Hmm.
place I've just mentioned called Ostuni. And
Hmm.
it's a fairly inexpensive red wine called Ficimori,
Hmm.
Fichimori,
Okay.
and you drink it chilled red.
Hmm.
Now it is beautiful. I mean, I like
Hmm.
a Pinot
Is
Noir,
this is it
so
more
it's
like a is it more like a dessert wine or
no, I describe it as close to a Pinot Noir, so it's fairly light.
oh I love Pinot Noir.
Um,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
you drink it chilled, and it's heaven. Now it's probably obviously great on a 35-degree Celsius day, might be less so on a dreary winter morning, but that's
Right.
number one as a drink. And then the second one is a ham called Marcos Soto Serrana. So it's an
Hmm.
Iberico ham, pata negra.
Hmm.
So I'm throwing things out here, but just for
Nice.
context,
Nice.
you fly into Madrid and then you drive 3.5 hours to the middle of nowhere where the pigs feed on acorns in the forests.
Hmm.
And so the meat has a real nuttiness to it, like a sweetness, a butteriness.
Hmm.
And it's called pata negra, and it is just fantastic. It's like
Hmm.
very expensive, but really nice.
Okay. I think next time when we meet, we need to try like a smorgasbord of all your favorite
Yeah,
foods. That sounds good.
definitely, we'll do that. Yeah,
Yeah, I was just thinking like about chilled wine in New Hampshire. It's the reverse, right? We're more likely to drink mulled wine, glue wine, to
uh,
keep warm. But
yeah.
that's not really foodie
Both,
like,
both
but it warms you up,
both equally good. Both equally
right?
good. Yeah.
So as a foodie, do you have like a gadget that's like an essential gadget that you can't miss? You have to have it in your kitchen.
Yeah. Well, it's knives. Good
Yeah.
knives. I think
Mhm.
knives for me, one, they're artistry. Like they're just
Mhm.
beautiful. The way they look,
Mhm.
the craftsmanship is perfect. But
Mhm.
I'm not going to geek out too much. But the weight of a knife is really
Mhm.
important. In terms of the balance
Yeah.
of it.
Right.
Um, and just there's nothing better than cutting vegetables or whatever it be with a really sharp knife.
Yeah.
Um, so that would be it. And Japanese knives are probably known to be the best, but anything kind of carvery related, I'd suggest is a worthy investment.
Hmm. Nice, nice. And don't put it in the dishwasher.
No, 100% not. No,
Right.
there's people in London, and their job is professional knife sharpeners. So they go to people's
Uh,
houses and just sharpen your knives for you. So
wow.
it's a thing.
Interesting. Wow, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Uh, is there a book that has influenced you personally or from a leadership philosophy perspective?
Yes. Well, whether it's leadership or just how I approach each day, it's face the fear and do it anyway.
Hmm.
Do you know of it?
No, but it's a mantra I live by.
You're right. Well, so face the fear and do it anyway. It's by Dr. Susan Jeffers, and it's quite an
Hmm.
old book now, but it's I highly recommend it to anybody.
Okay.
I think it doesn't matter who you are, how senior you are, where you live in the world. Everybody at some point, in whether it be in a day or a week, is going to
Hmm.
question themselves, and I think accepting that is half the battle.
Hmm.
So once you've just got to look in the mirror and say, "Let's do it."
Right.
I just caveat that there's a video that did the rounds about Barack Obama saying, "What does he look in people?"
Hmm.
And he says, people who've got an attitude of, "I've got this, like leave it
Right.
with me, I've got it." And I
Right.
think that kind of intertwines with what Susan Jeffers talks about in Face the Fear and Do It Anyway. I can do
Right.
it
Right.
because most times you can, right? Most times you can,
Right.
but you're not going to know if you don't try.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Um, the other
No,
one
that's
was Legacy by the All Blacks. I mean, I have to get that in. So Legacy is about
mhm.
the New Zealand All Blacks. I'm a rugby guy, so I,
Ah,
I
yeah.
like I
I
like that
think
book.
I've heard about that before. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just about you're only temporarily holding that shirt and leaving it in a better place when you depart than you
Mhm.
had it than it was when you picked it up.
Yeah. Nice.
So yeah, those two.
All right. I have to check these books out. That sounds like something.
Send him on the chat.
Okay, sounds good. And then I guess finally, if you could bring one food item to a executive boardroom, what would it be?
Yeah. Well, it's that ham I was talking about, the pata negra. So it's and by the way, I apologize to any vegetarians on this, but it's something I'm kind of passionate about. But the pata negra leg, you'll have seen them. When you put them on the stand and you use a knife and you carve it very, very thinly, like really wafer thin. So one, it tastes great. Two, it's a bit of theatre. Three, people can get involved, and it would be that. Yeah, so the pata negra ham leg would be the one.
Nice. I have to definitely check that out. As we close, are there any final words of Graeme Smith wisdom to encourage our listeners that are either navigating the job market or just are in between, or any advice, final advice for those folks?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure how wise people would consider me if they see this, but no, I think it's never been a better time to be in digital and tech. And yes, there's loads of layoffs, but just remind yourselves that's because there was a massive wave of overhiring. That people are going to say it's election year and it's challenging, and we've got the Ukrainian war, which is not helping, and none of those things are good factors. But we're always going to have to eat food. We're always going to have to wear clothes. If we're being really simple about things, so with that in mind, we've always got to manufacture stuff. We've always got to move it from A to B, and people are always going to buy things. So keep optimistic, keep energetic. Don't rush into jobs that you're going to see yourself spinning out of in 10 months, because there has been instances of that where it wasn't as described. So do your due diligence. And there's something else I was thinking of as well. Yeah, meet. This is the last thing and most important probably I've said all this session. It's amazing to think that people accepted jobs having only met their employer on Teams. I would insist in any business that I work with as a search partner, you have to bring that person on site, or at least meet for lunch or dinner somewhere. But you've got to do it, because you just can't get a thorough kind of view of the world if you don't. So,
Graeme, for sharing all of your insights. There's certainly a lot to take in with the current job market, both changes but also opportunities. CDO times.
If anyone wants to connect on LinkedIn, I'm there. I'd love to.
That's right.
To create the network and build it. Yeah.
Okay, so if they want to connect with you, that's the best way to get in touch with you. Okay, great.
Yeah, and if anyone's ever in London and needs restaurant advice or thoughts, you can also hit me up for that as well, because that's another passion.
Sounds good. So thanks again, Graeme. Thank you to our listeners. Thank you for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe on YouTube to our channel. Go to CDO Times, and also we have a newsletter, or Digital Insider newsletter. So thank you again, and till our next episode, and keep on innovating. Cheers.
Times